We is not a gang, we all look the same as you. But don't be ashamed, we all made the same snafu. We got different names, we might get the same tattoo. Maybe it's a gang, maybe it became that too. It's be polite but big.
My name is Open Mike Eagle. I live in LA. I'm originally from Chicago. Rapper, producer, television writer, podcaster, streamer, YouTuber. I do all of the creative things. When I'm trying to explain to a stranger what I do, what I usually say is that my music is hip hop, but it's sort of unconventional. It might not be what you would expect. It's a lot personal. It's a lot more conversational than a lot of the music people hear. I'm inspired by, like the native tongues movement. So of course it's Tribe and De La and the Little Brothers and Old Busta Rhymes and Queen Latifah and all of that aesthetically. And I always felt like their approach to music was always more like welcoming and inviting, rather than sort of harsh and aggressive. So like that's sort of the foundation of my taste as a hip hop consumer. And I think that like that's a foundation of my approach as an artist to always want people to be sort of leaning in and listening to these conversations I'm trying to have. Like that's what these songs boil down to for me. A lot of them is just like, these are the things I think about. These are the things I would like to talk about. So those are the things that I write songs about. Important themes for me, I'm really all about validating the experience of the individual in hip hop, like really centering that. I think there are a lot of questions or assumptions made in rap music about quote unquote authenticity. And I think what a lot of that means is people thinking that you have to be doing things similar to the next person in terms of your content, in terms of your approach, and in terms of your beat selection. And if your experience is outside of what people are doing, sometimes people have a hard time handling that in hip hop. So it's always been my mission to go completely against that and really celebrate individual, celebrate the mundane, the everyday. I think the real truth of experience is in exploring that stuff. So that's kind of what always inspires me to keep doing what I do, is that that's the whole mission, is to validate the aesthetics of the individual experience in hip hop, especially with Black people. To stay inspired, I consume a lot of media, and I know that what feeds me creatively is how people tell a story. So there's a lot of movies that I watch. There's directors who I love, and I love seeing how they tell a story on screen. I read a lot of comic books. That's a medium where, since you're not paying any different production budget, if you have somebody drawing, intergalactic space fight or drawing, a scene at the kitchen table, that means like there's no limit to the imagination put in a comic book. So I feel like there's always like some fantastic storytelling going on over there. And then more lately, I'm honestly getting inspired by my peers. I feel like when I first started making rap music, it was in a space where indie rap was trying to carve out a place for itself still. This is like 2010, 2011 of people like Spaz Palaces and Serengeti and Danny Brown, and there was this thing starting to happen. And you fast forward to now, I feel like it's a robust landscape. People really pushing this music all kind of different ways. So I'm always finding that inspiring too. My upbringing has so much to do with everything that I make. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, dead in the middle of the real crack era. And I lived with my grandparents because my mom was off on some other shit at the time. So there was a lot of shielding, right? Like I wasn't really allowed to play outside most of the time because it'd be gunfire. And in their protectiveness of me, they made sure I had things that stimulated me in my room, right? So my Nintendo had a TV, I had cable TV in my room growing up and not being able to go outside. Like I watched television constantly. So, in a lot of ways, I learned about the world through the lens of what I was looking at. So television is informing my world. as a kid, I'm looking for cartoons, but those are in limited supply. At the time, there was no Cartoon Network or any 24-hour stuff like that. So, you had the block in the morning, block in the afternoon, and Saturday morning cartoons. Aside from that, I was just always looking for anything funny, whether it was from the 50s on Nick at Night, or it was, the adult sort of sitcoms that would be on, NBC Thursday. I don't even know what the hell was going on in half of them, but like, that's the stuff that was making me laugh. That's the stuff that was showing me about human relationships. So I think, like, when you look back at a lot of that stuff, it was written by, like, observational humorists. Some of them were stand-up comics. A lot of them, were television writers who would go on to produce popular shows. And so I think I've always sort of looked through an observational lens at the world. And so that's always been a part of my music, is that sort of point of view, watching the world go by, describing things, describing myself in the world, describing how things in the world affect me. I feel like a lot of that is informed by media that I was consuming growing up. A message that I want to share with the world is that our society doesn't leave any space for processing of emotions, and I think that's so important. I think us as a country especially, we're always trying to move on from the past without talking about it. And I think it's really impossible to do that. I think we're putting ourselves in a foolish situation by always being asked to just push through and never stop to think about what you've gone through, how it might have changed you, how it might have affected you. Because all of this affects who you are and what you bring to the table and anything you involve yourself in. So, my one message would be like, don't just push through. Like, like, it's good to be able to compartmentalize and get stuff done and get up in the morning and do stuff, but don't do that, at the sake of, basically excommunicating parts of yourself that you don't want to experience in that moment. That's been a hard lesson for me to learn. And I think it not only applies to individuals, I think it applies to society as a whole. I think what you'll see next for me is more ways to experiment on how to do interesting storytelling in rap. We've had our great storytellers, Biggie and Slick Rick. Like, that form of storytelling is one thing, but I like to think, especially with my most recent project, I approached it with this question of, can a hip-hop album tell a story that's non-linear? Can it tell a story that doesn't hold your hand all the way through it, that doesn't explain everything? It's an experience. Like some movies I enjoy most, it's not like them telling everything that happened A, B, and C. They might skip a couple letters, they might do a couple things out of order, because in some subject matters, it feels more appropriate to treat them that way. Like, I deal with a lot of like trauma in my work, and the conversations around trauma aren't always served by easy answers. Sometimes the answers are difficult, which means sometimes the storytelling needs to be difficult. And I think going forward, especially given how this latest project of mine has been received, I feel like I'm going to be experimenting more on how to do that, how to tell an unconventional story in a rap album. I got this song on my new project called Neighborhood Gods Unlimited. The song is called My Coworker Clark Kent's Secret Black Box. And the song is about two things. One, it's about how everybody in that Daily Planet office, they know that dude was Superman. These are smart people. They're not fooled by this guy putting on a suit and glasses. Why they're playing them, I don't know. Maybe they're afraid he's going to heat vision them all to death or something. I don't know. He's got these people hemmed up in there, but they know. And the other thing this song is about is that if you're in a workplace, you have interests outside of that workplace at all, there's people there who hate you for that. Whether you collect rocks or you have a human child to worry about at home, if they don't have that, they get big mad at you and they talk about you behind your back. That's what the two verses of this song are about. And in the second verse in particular, I kind of reflect on the experiences I had when I had day jobs, but I was doing rap shows at night, and some of the hater-ass energy that I encountered because of that. This is Open Mike Eagle, and you're watching Offstage with Okayplayer. You've made a great decision.